Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a financial recap about the month of April, as well as I'm going to be showing you guys how I am budgeting for the month of May, which is something I normally don't do in my recap videos. So we're going to start, as always, by jumping into our budgeting system, which this month is new. So I know I've talked about in previous videos that I'm switching over from YNAB to Notion to do all of my financial tracking and budgeting, things like that. So I do have a video coming later this month that gives you an in-depth tour of my financial tracking through Notion, but for now you're just going to get a sneak peek while we look at this month's recap. So as always, we're going to start by looking at my income for the month of April, then we will look at my spending, then we will look at the budget, and then we'll end with the changes in net worth for April. So if you guys missed my monthly reset video, you will have missed that this was a very lucrative month for me. This is one of the better months that I've had in a very long time, and it's mainly because my freelancing has really taken off this past month and going forward. So that is why, again, at the end of this video, we're going to look at how I am budgeting my freelance income as well. So if you look here, you'll see on my reports page, this is where I track my business related reports for each quarter. So right now we're looking at quarter 2, which is just April and May. So on this, you'll see my business income for the month was $1,521.37. My business expenses totaled $349.21, which means my taxable income is $1,172, and then my taxes due is $240.29. If you're someone who is a freelancer, I'm going to be going more in depth on this in a future video and telling you all about how I track everything in Notion. So if you're interested in getting a template based off of what you're seeing here, then just again, stay tuned for a future video where I'll be showing that. But if you jump to the 2022 tab of these reports, you'll see every single month, but these months specifically show the total income, so the total input into all of our checking accounts, as well as any expenses, and then it gives the total change in net worth. So this is not related to just business. This could be any income that we make. So for example, it could be income from my husband's job, or it could be money that I'm gifted, or in this case, a lot of it is our tax refund that we got in the month of April, which is why our total income is so ridiculously high, as well as the fact that because I started this budget in April, I had to put in starting balances for all of my accounts. So the amount of cash we initially had was shown as income for the month, so that we actually have the correct change in net worth here. So going forward, we'll have a more accurate look at what our income was, but when we look at the breakdown of income, you'll see exactly where all those numbers are coming from. So since we can't get a legit look here, we're going to jump into transactions, and I'm going to sort these transactions by the category incoming. So if we jump to incoming, we'll be able to look at all of the incoming money that happened in the month of April. I'm also going to add a filter for month and make sure that I'm, again, just looking at April for the rest of today's video. So if we look here, we'll see that starting at the bottom, we had starting balances for all of our accounts. So all of our savings had $265. Oliver's checkings had $1,029. My checking account had $383. So our starting balances weren't that dramatic. We didn't have a ton of cash. It was about $1,600 in cash, but then you'll start to see all of the incoming money throughout the month. So we start here with freelancing of $200 for YouTube consulting. And over here on the right, you'll see I have notes for where each of these sources are coming from so that I'm able to track when tax time rolls around next year. Then we have $250 freelancing, which was for the contract I'm working on with my friend Julie, so $250 for that, then another $700 for that the week after. Then comes the deposit refund. So we got $440 as a refund from our previous apartment. So they finished the inspection, took off anything we owed, and then sent us back the rest of the money. So we got $440 from that. Then you'll see this reward credit of $1,314, which was bonus points on my credit card that I cashed out for cash to pay for my laptop, which you guys would have seen on my expense sheet for last month. Then we have gift money of $300. So again, my friend Julie decided to front me the money to get my insurance and financial license through the state of Florida. So I have that incoming $300 from that. Then we had our federal tax refund, which was $2,338. Then we got our YouTube income for the month, which I realized I never put a note here. This was YouTube income for February and March. So for those of you who don't do YouTube, I feel like I say this every time I do these videos, but if you don't meet the $100 threshold, then they hold your money until you reach $100. So this was a combination of February and March income from YouTube, my AdSense money basically, because I hadn't met the $100 threshold in February to get paid out in March. So we have $171 from that. Then we have a $1 refund from coupons.com. So I do couponing and you'll see a few refunds probably throughout the next few months of me getting refunds from couponing. So I have $1 from that. Then we had $50 for the Magic Mind sponsorship that I did in early April. Then we had our tax refund for DC State of $2,514. Then we had gas money, $50. So my friend Tina, I went and picked her up from the airport and I'm going to be driving her back down to Stewart in the next few weeks, so she paid me $50 to pay for gas for that. Then I had $150 for freelancing, which was some financial coaching that I did. And then Oliver randomly got a paycheck for $14.07 from his job. I have no clue why, because the pay period before they didn't pay him anything, so somehow they messed something up in accounting and realized they owed him $14, and we got that at the end of the month. So if we add these all together, that is where we get the $10,171. If you take out like the $1,600 that we had in starting balances, then in reality, our income for the month was actually $8,500. But again, that was of course including our tax refunds for both state and federal, as well as the credit I got on my credit card from bonus reward points. So in a sense, this is kind of a picture of what it looks like, but at the end of the day, like I said, when we looked at the report on the beginning page, my business income was $1,521. All right, so the next thing we're gonna look at is our expenses. So there's a few ways we could, of course, look at this. The easiest way is to come to 2022 and look at our total expenses, which for the month were $3,486.92. But something that isn't accounted for here is, just like the income, some of these expenses were actually just starting balances on our credit cards from the previous month. So if we actually, again, jump into transactions and we change this to does not contain incoming. And then we also add a filter to credit card payment and we change this to unchecked. And then lastly, I'm going to add a filter to take out payee does not contain incoming balance. So that took out those few starting balance transactions at the beginning of the month for when I started this budget. Now you'll be able to see that for the month of April, we spent $1,641. So if you think about that, if you look at our business income, it was about $1,500 something and our expenses were $1,600 something. So we technically did not break even. However, I will say that the gift money that my friend Julie sent me to basically pay for licensing, the licensing expenses are in this $1,641. So if you either add the $300 in to the $1,500 business income I made, or you subtract out the licensing expenses from my expenses, we did actually break even in the month of April, which is really, really great. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our change in net worth for April, which you guys already saw, but it's $6,444.02 in the month of April. Mainly that's really just our tax refund and then the money that I got added from my credit card, because again, we broke even besides those numbers. But overall, the tax refund was a great plus this month, and it's really nice to know we're not literally broke again, so I'm happy about that. So the last thing we're gonna look at is our budget, and I'm going to show you guys our last month's budget so we can see where we spent our money throughout the month. Then we're gonna end out by doing this month's budget and actually budgeting some of that money I made from freelancing in the month of April. Okay, so if we look at last month, we will see that I actually didn't assign about $44, but that doesn't really matter. That's just for giving every dollar job purposes, which again, if you want to understand my budgeting system, look out for a video later this month. But if we keep going down here, we'll be able to look at a few things. The first one that I want to point out is we can see the incoming and outgoing. So there is where we'll be able to see any expenses for these categories. Then you'll see assigned last month. Assigned is going to show us where we actually put money in our budget last month with the money that we got last month. So that is where all the money is assigned. Then rollover takes the assigned amount and it accounts for any incoming or outgoing expenses and gives us the total rollover amount that went forward towards the next month for those same budget categories. So this is our goals section. So obviously we didn't spend any money from our goals this month. We just assigned money, and which is why our rollovers equal the same amount. So debt payments, I did pay off our credit cards from the previous month, and normally credit cards will not be showing up here, but because we had to set some starting balances, it was as if we had starting debt that we had to pay off, which of course I paid all of that off last month, and that is done and accounted for. Here's where the actual expenses start to come in. So as I used to do with YNAB, I sorted it by different category groups. So the first one being immediate obligations, which in a sense I consider my required expenses for the month, things that are bills that if I don't pay, I'm actually going to get penalized for not paying. So if we look here, you'll see that the first category that had spending was groceries. So we spent $427 on groceries in the month of April. I think I said this the month prior, but at the end of the day, the reason we're spending so much more on groceries than we used to is because we're doing 4 meals per month for the entire family, aka for Chloe and Darren as well. So not only are we feeding ourselves, and I usually cook 3 meals per week, we're actually adding on a 4th meal every week that we're cooking, because when I do make those meals, I make a double portion. So at the end of the day, what that equates to is about 25% more in grocery spending, which is kind of what you're seeing. I feel like I'm actually spending almost like 50% more on groceries, but that is why our grocery bill is higher. Usually we spend about $300 to $350. Gas. So for gas, we spent $96.66 this month, which was basically 2 fill-ups in our car. I definitely drive a lot more here for things that aren't work related, which makes sense because it's Florida, things are more spread out, as well as my mom and other family live nearby, so I'm like driving around a lot, as well as I drove and picked up my friend from the airport, and then we also drive down to Stewart every once in a while, which is like an hour and a half there, hour and a half back, so a lot more driving, and of course gas prices are crazy right now. Then taxes, so I did put $500 into taxes for Q1. If you're a freelancer, you'll know that you have to pay your quarterly taxes at different intervals throughout the year. So I paid my quarterly taxes, which I put $500 in. Part of that went to DC state because we were still living in DC for Q1 of 2022. And then part of that went to our federal taxes. So that is it for immediate obligations. Then if we look at subscriptions, the only subscription I have going on right now is this iCloud storage of $3.17. I've been slowly canceling all of my subscriptions. So I did have more listed here, but as I end up canceling them, I've been deleting the rows. So this credit card annual fee is one that I am about to cancel because I don't want to pay for the credit card annual fee anymore. And I pretty much got my use out of that credit card because it's what gave me that huge bonus to be able to pay for my laptop with credit card points. So that will be deleted as soon as I cancel that credit card. But I like to keep them in here so I know what subscriptions are currently really on my radar so that I don't miss anything. Actually, the Amazon Prime, my mom decided to pay for it this year because I had told her I was going to cancel it if not because I can't afford to pay for it, and she decided she wanted to keep it on because we share it. I kept it on here on the list because as soon as we can afford it again, I would like to start paying for half of it so that me and her are splitting it since we both use it, but I haven't really been using it because I'm not really buying anything right now because we're trying to save money. So if we go down, now we have true expenses. So true expenses are basically things that are sometimes required expenses, but they don't happen monthly, as well as any variable expense that I know we're going to need to spend money on, but it's not consistent every month. We really didn't spend a lot of money in these grouped categories. Mainly it was $10.15 on pet supplies, which was litter for my cat Boba, $4.01 on personal care, which I don't even remember what I bought, but something, it was like chapstick or something random. And then $4.40 for JPay, which is the credits to email my sister. Then if we move down to business expenses, this is where a big chunk of the money was spent. So $154 towards insurance licensing, which I'll probably talk about in a future video, but for now that's all I'm getting into it with it. But that was $155 almost, $7.20 for TubeBuddy, which I pay for monthly, $178 for tax filing. So I did have to spend a lot of money to file taxes because I was self-employed. So that was more expensive on TurboTax, as well as having to file state as well as federal. So ended up being quite a bit of money to spend on TurboTax. And then $898 on tech, which was, I think it was my external hard drive cord. I had to replace it. So I spent about $9 on that. Then if we move down to just for fun, you'll see that I spent $22 on fun money, which was to go to the movies with Oliver and Chloe and Darren. And then I spent $171 on dining out. So I'm trying to keep this below like 100 right now, but 150 max has always been what I'm trying to do. But we did spend more this month on dining out. And I think really the reason for that is because we went out to the movies with Chloe and Darren, and then we all went to lunch afterwards. And that's not something we normally are doing right now. It's one thing to pick up fast food really quick, but going to an actual restaurant and eating lunch there ends up costing a lot more because you're paying for tip as well. And you end up just spending more money instead of just like ordering takeout or going through a drive-thru. So that was a pretty pricey lunch, which I think really pushed us over our limits there. And then couponing, I spent $15.49. So basically I'll spend tiny amounts of money as time goes on to pay for taxes on a lot of items that I'll coupon for basically free besides taxes. So that does add up, and I've gotten more into couponing lately. So I'm trying to keep like the spending at like $15 a month, but I get so many products for $15. It's wild. And I haven't even cashed out a lot of the cashback things I get through apps like Ibotta and stuff like that. Then we have giving. So Compassion International, it's the child I sponsor, $38 each month. So we have that. So that is what our expenses were last month in the month of April. Now we're going to look at the month of May's budget, and I'm going to show you guys how I'm budgeting my freelance income and what I'm putting my money towards. And if you guys like this portion of the video, please let me know in the comments down below, because I will gladly continue to do these like budgeting style videos instead of just giving you a financial recap. I don't know why I never thought about doing these before, but recently I realized this might be actually the most helpful part to show people, is like exactly where I'm putting my money and why I'm doing that. So definitely let me know if you're interested, and also give this video a thumbs up, because that will also show me that you are interested in this style of video. So if we look here, this is going to be a little bit complicated because I'm not going to go into the details of how this template works and everything, but it's basically the same concept as YNAB. I tried to use the rules of YNAB to make this template. Again, this will be all in a future video where I actually go through this and give you guys this template if you want it. But for now, just bear with me and just believe what I'm saying when I explain this. So right now we have $44 available to budget. I have already actually budgeted a lot of the money I made last month, but you'll see I created this category for next month. So what I want to start doing is I want to always be a month ahead. Right now, I only have about $1,000 that I was able to put into the next month goal, so that every month when the month starts, I actually already have $1,000 to start portioning out through the different expenses I have in the month instead of being month to month. So that is one way that I'm trying to organize my money as a freelancer, is always making sure I have enough for the next month, as well as building an emergency fund as time goes on. But as you guys see, I don't have an emergency fund right now because I'm really trying to save for our moving expenses as well as my husband's medical school applications, because they are very expensive. So the main way I like to budget is by focusing on my goals first. So something I've really changed with my money mindset is realizing that if I'm constantly just trying to make money to pay off bills that I already have and expenses that I have, I'm never going to actually get ahead with my finances. So I like to put our goals front and center on here so that we know that if we can start by focusing on our goals and funding our goals, then we can always figure out ways to pay off the rest of our expenses throughout the month. So I've really organized these groups of categories in order of importance in terms of how we view our money. So that's why we start with goals, then we move into debt payments, then we have our immediate obligations, and then all the rest of the spending that is less important. Although if you see this, you're probably like, Paige, why in the world do you have giving at the bottom? Yeah, I know, that should be much higher, and it is higher in my brain. I really should just move that up because that logically makes no sense why I have that down there. I think it's just because I don't have any money to really give away right now, because we're literally spending more than we're making like every single month. So yeah, eventually I want that higher on my list, and now I'm like burdened that I just said that whole spiel with giving at the very bottom as if it's the least important, because it should not be. But you know, you got to take care of yourself as well. So I don't know how I feel about it. Anyways, moving on. So this is what we're going to do here. The main thing I want to show you guys is how at the start of a month, I'm going to take the money I have from last month and start portioning it out for my goals. So we have about $1,000 from last month that we're putting towards this month that I can take out of there and start moving around, as well as this $44 of incoming that I never budgeted from the end of last month. So I'm going to start by going down the list and looking for anything that has this little clock on it, which basically means I haven't met the spending goal for that month. The first one I'm going to add money to is groceries, because I have a little bit of money in gas already and I want to make sure I fully fund our grocery bill for the month. So this is the part where as I'm funding these amounts, I'm actually going to just cut out the portion where I go and put money towards these categories. And the reason is it's very confusing how I have to do it through Notion to make it work. And I'm going to explain it in the future video, and I don't want to overwhelm you guys with information. So if you see me suddenly cutting from having $0 in a goal to like suddenly now I have X amount of money in that goal, but you never see me typing it, it's because I have to do some back end transferring to do that. So again, future video. Okay, so now you'll see I have $350 budgeted towards groceries, and our next month is now down to $650. So the next one I'm gonna do is iCloud storage. So now we have that funded with $3.17. Now I'm gonna move down and do pet supplies. So here you'll see we have $485 available, but our goal is to have $15 in here. So I need to add about $10.15 to this goal. Now we have pet supplies fully funded at $15. Personal care, I spent $11.32 already on personal care, and I need to fund that. So that's why we have the status of an X. It basically means you spent more than you had budgeted. And that's mainly because I don't actually budget any money for personal care each month, because I usually coupon all of my personal care items, but I actually bought hair dye to dye my hair, which is why I spent when I usually don't spend in this category. So I'm going to fund this to basically cover the expenses for dyeing my hair. So now that one is funded for the month, and we have available $0 because I basically was back funding the amount I already spent. Business expenses, I need to fund my $7.20 monthly fee for TubeBuddy. Here we go, all done. For some reason, I thought I had a goal for dining out, but I don't. So I'm gonna set that goal to be $150 a month. We do need to fund this for $150. So now that is funded for $150 for the month. And then Compassion, I need to fund our $38 charge. And I also just realized for some reason my couponing goal is gone as well, which should be $15. So I'm gonna go add that goal back in. I don't know how these got deleted. And I'm going to fund my couponing. So now that is funded. Now I know back at the top we didn't fund our gas because I wasn't sure if we were going to have enough, but we do have enough money left to fund gas. So for gas, I need to add about $96.66, I think. Now we are at $150 funded for the month of May for gas. So normally when I fund things, I would start with my goals, but I had already actually reached all of my goals for the month, which is why I didn't start with my goals. I went and funded my expenses first, but now we have about $350 left over in the next month, as well as $1,262 left over in incoming, basically money I should be allocating towards specific payments or goals. So I'm gonna take this $350, and I actually just realized I must have this goal set up wrong because I want to make this $1,000 for med school applications, and it's currently only at $700. So since I actually have enough money to put towards this one, I'm going to fully fund that goal at $1,000 really quick. So now our medical school applications goal is hit at $1,000, and we still have just about like $63 left that we can budget places. But before I mess with any of that, I just want to quickly go over what my goals are right now. So overall, my goals are to have $2,000 saved up for moving expenses, which we have. I also want to have $1,000 saved for medical school applications, which we also have. Eventually, I will start funding these other goals, but because we're about to move up to Orlando, I know that's going to cause a lot of expenses to come in, and I want to make sure that is fully funded before I start trying to save towards anything else. Then if we move down to immediate obligations, you may have noticed that I actually had all of my obligations funded for rent, renter's insurance, utilities, internet, things that I'm actually not spending money on right now because we are living with family while we wait to get our apartment up in Orlando. So I did go ahead last month because I had so much money come in from tax refunds and stuff. I went and funded $2,000 towards rent so we can pay that first month of rent. I funded $15 for renter's insurance because that's about what we were spending last time, as well as $150 for utilities and $50 for internet, so that our first month of housing expenses are all covered, so we are not like suddenly having to pay all these expenses that we're not prepared to pay. So all of that will be set and covered when we move in, and that $2,000 should cover anything like a down payment as well as a moving truck or anything we have to pay for to actually move up to our apartment. Now, ideally, our rent is actually not $2,000, and we're trying to get it lower than that, but the housing market is ridiculous right now, as well as the rental market, so it's been hard finding an apartment at the right price for us, but ideally, we're going to have a little bit of this left over, which might end up helping fund the security deposit or any other moving expenses, but I think having $4,000 saved up for first month rent, deposit, as well as moving expenses like a truck or anything like that should cover it, but I do hope to hire movers to help us move the furniture out of the truck and into our apartment, because we know for a fact we're going to be in a building that has like an elevator, and that's like a lot of heavy lifting, so it's a lot easier to pay for a company to help us with that unless we bring up family and stuff to help us. So ideally we just pay for that, which usually is about $150. I haven't checked in the Orlando area, so I'm not exactly sure what it's going to cost, but I'm assuming like around $150 for that. The last thing I didn't mention that I budget for as a freelancer is taxes. So if we go down into immediate obligations, you'll see that I currently have $250 set aside for taxes. And the way I figure this out is, again, we go back to our main page here, we go to Q2, we can see that from the month of April, I have to pay about $240 in taxes. So I took that, added a little bit of extra, basically rounded it to an even number, and I set that aside at the end of April to go towards our Q2 taxes. So what I like to do is that at the end of the month, I look at how much I made, calculate the taxable income at the end of the day, and then get that taxes due number. And then I go ahead and budget that in my budget and say, this is how much I need to set aside for taxes. So as the end of May rolls around, I will do the same thing. As more income comes in, I calculate the business expenses, get the taxable income, and then set that aside as a goal for taxes for the month. So that is all I have for today's video. Now you've seen the full picture of how I actually budget my money. If you are interested in these videos, make sure to give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments down below what you want to see, what you want to know about when it comes to my budgeting system. But look out for those future videos all about how this system actually works, as well as a template so that you can get it yourself, as well as a video talking about how I specifically track my business expenses and make myself prepared for tax season and quarterly tax payments if you are also a freelancer. But that is all I have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.